Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch today's video. I want to talk about another YouTube video, a guy that I talk about all the time on here, and he has put out a lengthy and really comprehensive video that I want to mention to you and kind of expand on, and then also go into some different areas that I believe are very related to his video. The guy's Ice Age Farmer. I know that many of you know who I'm talking about and have probably already watched his video. It was last week, I believe, maybe first part of this week, something like that. It's a longer video than he normally would produce, and I'll leave a link below. The video is about an hour long, and normally his videos are like the length of mine. I would encourage you to take the time and watch the entire video. And what he has done, and he's tried to take all this great reset kind of stuff and the zero carbon emissions initiatives and Agenda 21 and 2030 and 2050 and kind of put it all together and point it out based upon, current news that that is most definitely the direction that we're headed. This isn't something that 10 years ago and 20 years ago, many of you, including myself, were talking about it. And we're like, hey, you know what this could mean? This could mean that this is the direction that they're pushing us, while most of the world was like, oh, that's conspiracy theory. We're well beyond that now. This is very much fact that's in the news, and it lines up perfectly with these agendas that they're being very, very open about. And so I want to talk about that today, mention his video a little bit. And, I'm not trying to recreate all of his content, but I want to take it into also some other areas. Before I get started, going along with this, and I know this is a kind of a little bit of a commercial, but folks, things are getting rough out there. Prices are increasing. Things are and going to continue to be harder and harder to get a hold of. And so having enough food stored up is really important. And while I think it's most important that you grow food and can it and preserve it, and then also stock up on dry goods and canned goods and things like that, I do think it's important to have a little bit of freeze-dried, long-term emergency food kind of on standby, because you never know the situation that might arise that you need food that's quickly accessible, something that you can take with you if you need to go on the run, or if you're mobile or something like this, because this stuff is much more lightweight and it's easier, and so there's the convenience factor. And so these buckets of freeze-dried food you can get from preparedness.com. I've teamed up with My Patriot Supply, and a lot of my listeners have used them, and they've reported back to me that they love their product and their service. We've used them and we've eaten their products. In fact, there's a few things that we get and we just eat on a regular basis. They have some breakfast foods that we get, and we just like to eat them just for a normal breakfast, not because it's an emergency. So I would encourage you, if you're in the market for that, to look at them. You don't have to buy from me, but if you're in the market, at least consider the prices there. They offer some really good prices and excellent service. American made, a Patriot company that offers a really good service and a really good product. All right, so on to this video. This video that Ice Age Farmer made. And you know what? I think his video, I think this may be one of the more important videos that he's done. And he puts out amazing content, as most of you are aware of that watches him. But if you don't have a lot of time to be watching videos, I would make his video the most important one to be watching if you haven't seen it over the next few days. And like I said, it is an hour long, but it's an excellent video. He's really put a lot together on it. And what he's talking about in the video is this new zero carbon initiative. And it's part of all the agendas, the Agenda 21, 2030, 2050, the Great Reset. All of those are all the same stuff, just repackaged or focused on one particular area. And it's the same thing as the zero carbon initiative. It's all part of it. And that's the new thing. That's with the Joe Biden's infrastructure plan and the green carbon emissions plan. that he's wanting to spend trillions of dollars and make everyone drive a little electric vehicles that have a short distance range and make everyone build green homes and buildings and things like that, and put up windmills and solar panels everywhere and shut down natural energies like oil and gas and things like that. This all fits with it, and he points out how it's all coming together. And what I want to focus in the first part of this video is how this is connected with all this other stuff that many of you, those of you that have kind of been around for a while, let's say, over the past 10, 20 years or so, that you have been trying to, be the Paul Revere of waking everyone up, of like, do you see all this stuff that's going on while everyone's asleep? Well, folks, unfortunately, you were right, and it's all kind of come to a head now. And then hereafter, after I get done with that little bit, I want to talk about what do we do, because that's a question that I'm seeing a lot. More and more people, they're seeing this administration and the things that they're doing, the rapidness, the intensity of this push, and they're like, it's happening so fast and so intense that, is there anything we can do, or is it just gonna happen so quickly that we're gonna lose? So I'll address that too. Remember stuff like North American Union. Remember stuff like the NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. Remember the smart ports, Kansas City smart ports. All these things that 10 and 20 years ago that some of you that's been around for a while, you were like, see, this is what they're doing. They're trying to create this UN-like organization, this one world government. Well, there'll be unions like the European Union and the North American Union, the Asian Union, and all this kind of stuff. And that's just one step closer to one world governance, and they'll limit our mobility. They'll limit where we can live. I mean, look at some of these maps. This is out of the 2050 initiative. These are mega centers, mega regions, and it's something that Christian over on Ice Age Farmer points out more in length. But it's something that I've also talked about, that their goal is to get you off of the land and to move you into high concentrated cities. There's been dystopian movies talk about this, where there'll be these mega cities, and we're talking bigger than New York, mega cities of 40, 50, 100 million, a couple of 100 million people all living in one city. And of course, because it's so concentrated and so dense, you won't be living in suburbia, you won't be living in houses, you won't even live in townhouses. Everyone's going to be living in big high-rise apartments. This is their goal. They talk about this. This isn't something that I'm just making up, folks. Look it up. It's there. And they want to move us into these regions. And then all the rest of the country is going to be run by big corporate farming organizations, or it's going to be, left to run wild so that it will help the environment, or it's going to be used to put up windmills and solar panels. And so that's why they don't want you and I to live like this. There are a few places, and Missouri is one of them, that is very favorable to this lifestyle. In fact, they're very favorable to just completely off-grid living. Most of these counties out here have zero building codes. There's very little, if any, regulation on, sewer and septic, on well waters, on how you collect water, how you collect your electricity, how you build your house. That is rare. It's one of the reasons why I like the Ozarks, because the Ozarks is pretty much, you can live how you want to live, and they don't really bother you about that. Most areas, it's a growing thing that you can't live off grid anymore, that you have to be connected to the grid. You want to have solar panels, wind power, all that, that's fine, but you still have to be connected to the grid. In fact, they're taking it so far as up in like Ohio and Wisconsin and stuff, Amish communities that's been off grid forever. They've never been on the grid. They're now passing legislation to force them to be on the grid. Whether they use it or not, they don't care. You just have to be connected to the grid. Same way with rainwater collection. Something that's been going on for years now. So many cities that won't even let you have a garden. You can have a chemical-filled, manicured lawn, but if you want to grow vegetables in your yard, you can't. These homeowners associations and city ordinances won't allow it. There's a reason for all that. As Ice Age Farmer points out in his video, it starts to go beyond a coincidence when you start seeing news reports in various cities, in various states, and in various countries of them all coming to the same conclusion, the same agreements, that they're passing the same kind of legislation. This is not a coincidence. This is an orchestrated movement. I remember years ago, in my law enforcement career, I did a little stint in between jobs. I thought it paid well, and I thought it might be an easy kind of law enforcement type of job, and I worked as a criminal investigator with a health department that was attached with the sheriff's department, and I thought that the sheriff's department was filled with politics and stuff until I got into the health department, and it blew me away. And they would get their directives. This was a county level health, a large county health department. And they were basically getting their directives of what to do and what to say from the United States government, the federal government. And they would do this, and they would flat out tell all the employees. I would sit in meetings, and they would say the reason for this is that we want a uniform health department across the nation, that all health departments that will be doing the same thing and saying the same thing and putting out the same information, because we want everyone in America to be getting equal level of care, that kind of stuff. So when you see cities and counties and stuff passing these ordinances or enforcing these ridiculous laws, there's a reason for it, because they're all following the same agenda. The agenda that was worked on starting all the way back in the 1960s with the United Nations, and developing into Agenda 21 and 2030 and 2050, and now the Great Reset. They're all connected, and they're all part of the same agenda. There's companies. How many companies you guys have heard in your lifetime that kind of got in trouble with the law? Maybe they lost their license, they got sued or whatever, and they went out of business, filed for bankruptcy, and all of a sudden, a few months later, this company that's really similar to that comes back under a different name and a lot of the same leadership. And so what they're doing is just they repackage it and try to sell it again. Well, that's a lot of what's happening with all these different agendas. And so we're seeing that over and over again. And what it's doing is it's proving that their agendas are, in fact, being enacted. They're being enacted right here in this country. Joe Biden, this is what he's wanting. What he ran on, if you'd listened to the things that he said during the campaign, you'd come to the same conclusion that a lot of people did, and that a lot of the media said. Oh, he's a moderate guy. Oh, Joe Biden, he's not some crazy liberal like Hillary or Obama or Bernie Sanders or any of those, Nancy Pelosi. He's a real moderate kind of guy, but he's not. And whether it's him that's actually doing it or his handlers around him, it doesn't really matter to me. Fact is this is the stuff that's happening. His infrastructure plan, his rail line. They want to get you out of your car. They don't want you to have a car so that you can travel around. You don't need to travel around. You're all going to be living in big cities, and you're going to be riding subways and rails, and some of you, select few, might be able to own these little tiny electric vehicles to get around in. But in the days of having gasoline engines and diesel engines and being able to travel all over the country isn't going to happen. The days of catching a plane and flying all over the world on vacation, it's not going to happen. Several states are already working on legislation that will phase out the sale and use of gasoline and diesel over the next decade. The thing is, it's different than what some of you were finding out and learning about this 10 and 20 years ago. Is 10 and 20 years ago, this stuff was kind of just getting out there and being leaked. Well, now it's actually happening. They're putting it into action. They are enacting this stuff right now as we speak. And over the next few years, starting from now, over the next 2 to 3, 4 years, you're going to see a rapid change in the world that you live in. And so that's why that I advocate and push and harp, and it's like I'm a broken record. I get it. I mean, some of you, I know some of you watch my stuff and you're like, my goodness, every video I watch, he says the same thing. Grow food, stock up, go stock up on food, grow food, preserve food, get gardens going, get animals going, forage. I say it over and over and over again, and I'm hoping that eventually some of you, it's going to start sinking in. I know a lot of you it already has, but I know that there's some of you that's still kind of on the fence, or you do it, but you don't really put everything into it. And I'm telling you, this stuff that's happening, if you don't put everything into it, if you don't prep and grow food and preserve food like your life depends on it, because it does, you're going to have to end up in one of these big mega cities. You're going to end up in the government food lines and taking whatever mark and ID and all that they give you, because you won't have a choice. And I know that living the way that we do out here, and many of you do, isn't 100% guarantee on freedom, but it's so much better chance than doing nothing at all. Which leads me to what I wanted to kind of close with. And this, what I'm going to say, is just opening the door. I'm just going to open the door to this discussion because I don't have enough time, certainly, to cover it in this video. And this is way more than just one video. What do we do now? Now, I am not now, and I'm not planning in any time in the future advocating for any kind of violence. I've had a few people think that that's what I'm advocating, and I'm not. I'm not because, well, you can't do that online. And I don't believe it's the right thing and the right time right now. So don't even think that I'm going there. But what we're starting to see happen with some of these states, they're starting to stand up. There are a few good states, a few good governors that are starting to stand up. You know, Florida, Texas, Missouri, because Missouri's got a vaccine passport nullification law being worked on right now, along with the Second Amendment Preservation Act. That's getting ready to, it'll probably be heading to the governor's desks shortly. And a few other states. I think Iowa was one. Maybe it was Utah or somewhere else that was working on one. These are nullification laws that these states are passing, or nullification orders. They may not be calling it that, but that is what they are. And I know that some of you are going to jump in and say, oh, the Supreme Court has ruled that states can't nullify federal laws, blah, 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 blah. I don't care about that, because here's the deal. According to the Supreme Court, I'm sure the secession of the southern states was illegal and unconstitutional. It doesn't matter. Laws only matter to a certain point until people kind of usurp those laws, and because of the rulers that are ruling over them are tyrannical. And so this, what we're seeing with these states that are starting to pass these nullification laws, I think it's probably the last potentially non-violent step that's available. Some of you may still be holding out hope that, the normal election process is going to work. I'm not going to berate you for believing that, but I've long since lost hope in the election process, long before even Trump took office. And I think this last election just kind of fortified my view on that. I think the last stand that we probably have to keep this, to do a few things. It would either prevent us from going to some type of civil war or revolution, or just absolutely losing all of our liberties, is state nullification. So I would encourage you, especially if you live in a true conservative state, to just tear up the governor and your local reps' phones. They're more likely to be a genuine person, not all of them, than on the federal level. A lot of them are less bought and paid for than on the federal level. Because, folks, if the nullification doesn't work, there's a couple of things that could happen. The federal government may not care. They may not respect those nullification, and they most likely won't. The last time that this happened was, you got that right, just before the last Civil War, or the war between the states. That's a possibility of what could happen. And of course, that means that the states would have to not back down. If the states do back down, which is always possible because the feds will, tell them, well, we'll yank all of your funding. Of course, the states will say, well, then we won't send the taxes to you, because the states are actually the ones that collect it. And then there's a fight there. So it could come down to a state versus federal government civil war, kind of like the last one we had. And if that doesn't happen, then I think probably the only last hope of retaining liberty and abolishment of tyranny is a one-on-one revolution. Now, again, I'm not on here advocating that. YouTube won't allow it. If you and I meet in person, you want to come to our meetings that we have locally, I'll talk to you face to face about it, and I'll give you more of my real opinion. But the things that are happening are changing rapidly. Occasionally I get a comment on here, it's probably a troll, but I do see them all over the internet also. That, guys, it's not really that bad. You're just making this into something that it's not. I mean, the economy's not doing too bad. People are spending money. They all just got an extra $1,400, and they got their tax returns. Some people are going back to work. States are starting to open up. It's not that bad. We just on the pendulum swinging to the left a little bit. Eventually it'll swing back to the right. I don't think it's ever going to swing back to the right. The things that they're doing right now, the things that they're putting in place are to prevent it from ever swinging back to the right. They know that. Look at what Joe Biden is proposing, a think tank group or whatever, to expand the seats on the Supreme Court so that, well, it'll be forever a liberal Supreme Court. They know they don't have any plans of it ever swinging back to the Republicans or the conservatives. And there's so many conservatives that are Republicans that aren't conservative. I don't think they care about that anymore. So, folks, prep up, plan, get your house in order. And probably in the back of your mind and your contingency plan, plan for things going downhill in a physically violent way too. Because if you and I live long enough, it may happen. And that may be the only way to retain any kind of liberty left in our lifetime, Lord willing, and if he doesn't come back soon. So, all right, folks. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.